where does it show that people are unsatisfied with the how the or where a majority of people are unsatisfied with how people are voting
Well,
in Congress?
for example, in 2000, the election, the outcome of the election may have been beneficial to us today, but the popular vote was actually with the candidate who lost. The candidate who didn't have the popular vote but had the electoral system on his side won, and that shows that the American political system doesn't actually work in favor of individuals.
But the Electoral College is elected by the people, correct?
Well, there's like some states have winner take all, which means that if they just get
We're not saying how the delegates are going to vote. We're asking how the electors are who may consider elected positions.
well, they're not.
The United States citizens vote their representatives into the seats that they have, but that doesn't mean that these representatives are voting in the way that the United States citizens want them to vote. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
How do you substantiate the claim that democracy is synonymous with self-government?
Based on the definitions that we have for democracy and self-government, that's how we substantiate that claim.
Okay, so perfect. Let's move on to your definition of self-government. Can you define that?
A government or control of a country by its own members.
Okay, so does that fit into like literally every single nation in the world?
Not necessarily. That doesn't fit. Well, if it fits into every nation in the world, that means that every nation in the world is a self-government. And therefore
No,
people are capable of self-government, because therefore every nation in the world would be a self-government based on your definition.
The definition you provide is so broad, and it's just telling you that governments exist. Yes, but that doesn't talk to you about the specific definition of self-government. We tell you that self-government means that it doesn't have outside factors and influences.
I just have
To reserve a minute for prep.
You have a minute 22 left.
Okay, yeah.
Some governments may not pass those hurdles. That doesn't mean they're not capable of passing those hurdles. Countries can pass those hurdles.
Should I take my sword off?
The 200 years we have in the
I'd like to start off with a quote from a letter to Everett, 1824, that says, "The qualifications for self-government in society are not innate. They are the result of habit and long training." So basically this means that we have done this from our past experiences, and we've gotten this far from something that we've learned, and something that we've inherited from nature, or something that we've brought upon ourselves from self-governance. And this asides with the Declaration of Independence, which is one of the most astounding documents that we withhold in the United States. And it grants us these 5 principles that, 1, God grants the people the rights, and 2, the government must protect those rights. 3, these are consented by the people within the government. So which means that we are making the decisions to consent to these rights, and that these are applicable to our lives and our lifestyle, and that if And if this goes against our happiness or what we want or what we need, we have the right to revolt against our own government. And lastly, the fifth principle is change the institution of what the government has been established on. To say that we lack self-governance says that we lack the United States of America. And clearly, the United States of America is still active. It is in fact so active that we are in the middle of campaigning, electing our new president of the United States. And to show that there is no progress, that would conclude that we aren't electing the new president of the United States, we aren't electing a new Supreme Court justice, we aren't doing these referendums that Ryan was just mentioning about the marijuana legalization. There's progress in America. There's other progresses within other nations that might not be favorable, they might not be good, but there is progress, and it shows capability amongst the people to have self-governance.
Everyone ready? Ready? Let's start with the first voting issue of today, which is democracy. Our opponents come up here and tell you that democracy exists, and that proves that self-government is possible. But remember, the resolution today tells you that people are capable of self-government. That means maintaining it in the long haul for the better of the people within that government. This doesn't, just the fact that democracy exists doesn't prove to you that the people are capable of maintaining that long self-government in the interest of themselves. And so let's move on to the second voting issue of today, which is that they're able to make their own decisions. That's great. We completely agree with that, but they're not able to make good decisions. And at that point, that's when the good decisions come to manifest themselves in the collapse of self-government. We give you the example of tribal nations, where their crime rates are so high that it's a lot higher in tribal nations, a lot higher than the average crime rates in America. We give you two further examples that show the collapse of self-government because of these reasons, because they're not able to make good decisions. For example, in British Columbia, which is a territory under self-government, their own government is collapsing because of the decisions that they make. And then further, Yukon, which is a current self-government, tells you that they're worried that their own system of politics is going to collapse because of the system of self-government, and there's no structure to that. And so with that, let's move on to our contention, where we talked to you about how first, self-governments aren't accountable enough to constitute a successful government. Pay attention to our definition, where we tell you capability is just not the ability to accomplish something, but it's the ability to do so effectively and doing it well. The purpose of the government in the first place is to make sure that the people are satisfied and their standards of living are high. And that's not something a self-government can do. And so let's look to political participation. Declining commitment to government right now, it's declining. That's exactly what Charlie tells you in our case. Democracy is the basic prerequisite, and if people aren't voting or politically participating, self-government isn't going to work. For these reasons, I urge your vote in the con.
Question?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Now, thank you, young people, for all that you're doing. I really appreciate that. Having taught our Constitution for many years, I do need to correct you, and that is we are not a democracy. We never were. We are a representative republic. And that is why our representatives vote for us. But, so the word democracy means a majority, and that everybody votes, for everybody, and we're not that way. We're represented. We vote, as Ryan said, we vote for our representatives, and they in turn vote for us. And so please correct the fact that under the United States Constitution, we are a representative republic. We are not a democracy.
Tamsin?
I think you would have to ask yourself in this discussion, is one single person capable of self-governance? Is one single person capable of making correct, useful decisions in life that will make that person successful and happy? And then you have to consider that there's a time course in human events, which means that at one given time, one may make a mistaken decision, but does have the capability later on to reverse or correct that decision, so that having gone off the path that will lead to happiness and success, you may come back onto that path. And if one person is capable of doing that, then a group of people should be capable of doing that. And if one person is not capable of doing that, then there's nobody who's capable of carrying on a successful government, which will lead to successful, happy populace.
That makes sense.
There are cases in history, for example, only a few, also where there was a government but not a state. Medieval Ireland and Iceland were such examples, where there was really no state, but the people did govern themselves. And the earlier Indian tribes also did that.
Thank you, Tamsin. Dr. Swire, did you have something you wanted to say?
Well, I just wanted to say that having been on the debate team many years ago, I thought that you all did a wonderful job. What's really exciting is we have young people here. This young man over here is taking 2 pages of notes, and folks over here are taking notes. You are the young men and women in this room are the future of America. This is an important debate that's going to go on throughout your lives. Whatever you do, I don't care what business you're in, or if you enter government, or you enter the teaching profession, it's very important to remember what you said today, because it's going to impact you, your families, and your children. Thank you very much.
Barbara, would you like to speak?
Just a quick thing. It's an old joke, and you may have heard it before, but it's easy to remember. A democracy is when 2 lambs and a wolf vote on what's for dinner. Okay? When you have a constitutional representative republic, the lambs have a representative and the wolves have a representative. So now we have a standoff. And the lamb goes home and eats something else, and the wolf goes home and eats something else. But if you can remember that, a democracy is 2 lambs and a wolf.
Two wolves and a lamb.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're right. Sorry, I'm getting the old joke wrong, and I'm old enough to remember it. Yes, 2 wolves and a lamb deciding on what's for dinner. But that's an easy way for you to remember the difference in a democracy.
We have almost a half an hour left. And I know Steve has something planned that he's anxious to share with you. And I know that Carol wants to make sure that people who did not sign in do sign in.
Plus.
And she has a comment, right? Make it.
Just one.
Make it.
Okay. If anybody did not sign in, I'll pass this around. And if anyone would like America's quick big picture and to put your email on here, I can send it to you. I believe, and I think you were wonderful today.
Well, wait a minute, could we please have everyone's name, like,
Well,
written up for, you know, complete?
Absolutely.
Because I, for one, feel a lot better about the future of this nation after hearing this story.
Yes, and, Charles?
I'm Charles Karcher, and Karcher is spelled Karcher.
And Ashley?
Ashley Whelan.
Okay, I got that one.
And, actually it's Ryan?
Yes, Ryan Bosback, and that's B-A-U-S-B-A-C-K.
B-A-U-S-B-A-C-K.
And Cheyenne?
Yeah, Cheyenne, C-H-E-Y-E-N-N-E, and then Lauterberg, L-A-U-T-E-R-B-E-R-G.
Okay.
I'm sorry that we didn't have placards in front of each one of these students, and I'm sorry that their coaches weren't here to explain that this is a national format used by the high schools across the nation. It's very familiar to them. It's unknown to us. I felt a little bit lost. I felt that we needed to know a little bit more about what was happening, and they did email it to us, and we probably should have printed it out. So we're at fault. I would like to adopt all 4 of these young people and then clone them, because I think they were absolutely astounding.
I know how to clone.
Yeah, you can clone. And
Beth, can I finish?
Steve, how much time do you need for what you're doing?
Go right ahead, Steve.
Oh, about 10 minutes, I guess.
Why don't you go ahead and do it?
Okay.
And then
Signal
Sure.
that we're on, guys.
you can just do it
Okay.
because I'm
We're not on. We're not on.
That American
We're not supposed to go with him.
big picture, we know we have a Republican Party and we have a Democrat Party. And we are a republic, and with our republic, we are to protect our freedoms versus the tyranny of big government. So if you would like to have a copy of this, we'd be happy to email it to you.
So write your name and email down.
If you just email it on the sheet, we can pass it around,
and leave it at the front desk.
or I'll leave it here. And if you'd like that, then you can send it to other people.
So, I have a simple question about federal regulations, and I thought that it'd be good to have a visual. So, would you be all right to put the regulations here? Okay, come on, just put the regulations on the desk.
All right.
That's number 8, I think.
I want you to hear. Go ahead.
Sorry, there's a few more regulations than you probably were prepared for. You're more than welcome. It turns out that in 2012, which is 4 years ago, the federal regulations totaled 175 pages. At a cost to the American consumer of $1.5 trillion a year.
That's true.
And with 175 pages, neither the regulators nor the regulated know what's in these boxes. So, the regulations aren't keeping us safe. And the question is,
Can you use the microphone?
sure. Can I have the last box? All right, so what I'm saying is this. In 2012, federal regulations totaled 175,000 pages. at a cost to the American consumer of $1.5 trillion a year. Senator Mike Lee states that for every page of laws passed, 800 pages are added to the federal regulations. So the situation is actually 4 years worse than what you're looking at. Neither the regulators nor the regulated know what the regulations are. So the question is, which regulations do we keep? Would you, either side, use the preamble of our Constitution to prioritize, and if not, what priorities would you use to create functional regulations? Anybody care to answer? The question is, would you use the preamble of our Constitution, which tells you the purpose of our government, to prioritize which of these regulations you want to keep? Right, because at this point, nobody knows what's in these boxes. Not the regulators, not the regulated. So, why not use it? Would you use the Constitution, or would you have other priorities? Who would like to?
Well, personally, I feel that I would definitely want to prioritize simplifying these regulations so that people could actually understand what's in them, and also so I can see all of you lovely people around these boxes. Mainly. But I think that it seems a little bit excessive to have all these regulations. I mean, I understand that the country is complex. This is a very large nation, and so therefore, obviously, there are a lot of problems, and therefore those problems need to be dealt with. Obviously, and in order to deal with those problems, we need a regulation in order to do that. But I think that we definitely need to simplify those regulations so that we can understand what is actually being regulated. So that people don't misunderstand what's being regulated, and so they can understand what the laws are, so they can actually feel like they can participate in their government. Because I think that's what they were saying. People are capable of self-government, but they're not taking advantage of the self-government because they feel it's too complex. So if we simplify it, then maybe the self-government will work better. And I think that there's no way that four boxes of these even could probably protect people in the United States just as well as all these boxes and promote general welfare just as the preamble states just as well. So.